This is the Mystic River Boathouse Park Implementation Committee. Today is Monday, January 4th, 2021. This meeting is being recorded. If you're going to speak, be sure to state your name, and if you're not speaking, please keep your microphone on mute. I'm going to do a quick roll call, and then I will turn it over to Chairman Keppel. So I'm just going to go alphabetical with my list. And first one is Rick Broberg. Yep, he's here. Catherine Burchinell, she's here. I see her. Mike Crowley is on the phone tonight. Susan Cullen. Yeah. Deb Downey is here. Chad Frost is with us. Chris Gastarek, did I pronounce that right? I hope. Finn Hoffman is not here. Jim Kelly is here. Nick Keppel is here. Tim O'Brien. Is Mike O'Neill here? There you are. Rick Perkins is here. Steve Clanchon. Yep. Yeah. Farouk Rajab is here. And Tom Switz. And I guess that is everybody. And this meeting is being recorded, and I will turn it over to Chairman Keppel to call the meeting to order.
I'll call the meeting to order. I went back to my cell phone. I thought I was making progress tonight by connecting with my on my desktop, but if people hear me better on my phone?
Yes.
All right. So we'll commence the meeting with the reading of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Margaret.
Next, now I had my next items, comments from the public.
Seating of alternates, Nick.
Oh, seating of alternates. I think we have a quorum, don't we?
Yes, you have a quorum.
So, remember who Jason Vincent is? He's a town planner, yeah.
Michael, you're not muted.
Michael, you're not muted. So I don't think we need to seat any alternates, correct?
No, you don't.
But we thank the alternates for your loyalty and participating in these meetings. Next item, I believe, is comments from the public. Any comments?
Nick, I got to interrupt for a moment. I forgot to recognize Leanne Theodore's here. I'm sorry. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you, Sandy. Leanne?
Rich Ward from Recreation and Human Services as well. Thank you.
So we have everybody who's anybody from the rec world, all right? Mike, Rich, and Leanne. It's some would say a rogues gallery, but we won't go there. So next is finally comments from the public and members of the public joining us.
I haven't had any members of the public, so no. Okay.
Next is, well, I know Chad has a competing meeting at 6:30, and Chad had a quick report on a topic of the coastal aspect of the project. So, Chad, you want to give your update?
Sure. So, as you all know, we've been working very hard over the last month and a half trying to get all the coastal reports done in timing with the end of the year with the funding. and we raced up until the last minute. I did have a meeting with Susan right before the Christmas holiday where we went over the sheets and the plans that we've come up with so far. And if we want to have it as an official agenda item on next month, I can forward around all the plans as well as a couple of documents and reports. But the short of it all is that the living shoreline concept, all the engineering assessments prove that it should work. There are a bunch of little details that were being figured out about ice scour and things like that to get the reality of what type of living shoreline. But the short of it is we didn't find anything that was alarming or anything that wouldn't allow it to be a feasible alternative for the shoreline. So that's the 5-minute synopsis. Is that all indications from the engineering studies look good for the living shoreline and what the approaches that we've been taking thus far. So just my quick summary.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Chad on the?
So basically, just to give you a summary, we've got probably about a dozen pages right now of plans and details. So just taking it from where we had it as a master plan, it was just one pretty picture, right? It was just the color with the ideas. So now we have the details more along, worked out so that they're ready for permitting, which was what the contract was for, was to get ready for coastal permitting. And then we have a couple of different reports from the engineer that look at the ice flow, the scour, the wind, the wave action, all those sort of things to do all the engineering assessments to make sure that the shoreline could stand up for what we'd like to do, what we'd like to propose. So.
Good. Thank you, Chad. Any questions for Chad? Hearing none. I don't know. While we have our, since we have our guests, Leanne and Rich, do you?
Nick, you didn't approve the last December 7th minutes. You need to do that.
Everybody have a chance to review the minutes that Sandy shared? Any questions about the minutes?
Chairman, this is Farouk. Motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve last month's minutes.
Who seconded, please?
Mike Crowley.
I second.
Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Minutes pass. Under old business, we had to, Danielle asked that I put off our subcommittee meeting on the park activities use planning so that there could be additional discussions with the rec department. Of course, the holidays have complicated the ability to have too much interaction, but I know the rec department is examining options, and Danielle indicated today that she had been to the building, and I don't know, Leanne or Rich, do you want to add any thoughts at this point about interest and how much what you see as opportunities by the rec department?
I'm unmuted now. Thank you. So this is my first time looping in. Rich has been keeping me, and Danielle and Sue have been keeping me apprised of what conversations have been taking place. And Rich was present with Sue and Danielle for the walkthrough. And I think I would hold off on discussing anything really in much more further detail till you have that subcommittee meeting. But we have been having some conversations about different options. From the Human Services Department's Recreation Division, we are looking at being a great partner in programming specifically for use of the shore and outdoor programs, but hadn't factored in from the beginning of the conversations the use of the house or the indoor space. So we are still, as you had mentioned, actively working with Danielle and Sue. I know Rich has already discussed some of the programs and presented some materials to you all of things that we could do if this came to fruition. And I just want to say that we're really excited for the opportunity to access the shoreline. It's a big missing piece within our recreation division, is we have a lot of other bases covered, but we always speak about how can we get closer to the water, and this is still such a great opportunity. We're excited to move things forward, but I think I would hold off on having any further detailed discussion until we could go move that forward with Danielle a little bit more in that subcommittee. Rich, if you have anything to add, please jump in about any specifics, or if anybody has any specific programming questions, we'd be happy to discuss.
The only thing that I would like to add is it's going to be a beautiful spot for my multi-floored office space, and I'm going to love moving in very quickly there. But no, it's a good spot for it. I'm looking forward to it. Very excited about the opportunities. Mike gave me some marching orders here on a lot of different stuff that we were going to be putting together, programming wise. After touring the house there, my enthusiasm is that much more. The opportunities are great there, so I look forward to working with everybody.
If I could add one more thing, I reached out to Susan today. She was looking for some information, but I would suggest, if we could, to put a small group together and go up to Glastonbury and take a look at what they've done in a very similar site, very similar situation. They've had their program up and running now for a couple of years. It is a combination of a boathouse and event space, larger than what we're talking about, but I think we can learn a lot from what they've done at their facilities. So I'd be happy to reach out to them. I know some of the coaches up there. I know the people involved, and see if we can orchestrate a tour if anyone would be interested.
Mike, I've actually been to the one in Glastonbury myself, and there's also the surf club down in Madison. And then I also went to the Spicer House over in Groton, right over, which is a lot closer. But yeah, the Glastonbury is a beautiful spot as well.
That'd be great, Mike. I would really enjoy going up to Glastonbury and seeing that. I've seen the Spicer House. I'm also aware of some of the boathouses up along the Charles, because my daughter goes to school quite close to Harvard's. So I'd be very happy, though, to see, something in the Connecticut setting, which is a little different than downtown Boston.
I have a question, Nick.
Yes.
It's just an observation that the house has become sort of a liability and a drag on this whole development, and sort of really bending over backwards to find uses for that space rather than focus on the excitement of the park and the boathouse and kind of outdoors, big spaces. Is it too late? As I remember, Shippo said that either the house or the shed could be kept, one or the other. Is it too late to reconsider and say perhaps the shed is the better structure to hold on to because it's more useful short term for it's being used now, long term, it's a big open space. It has that tunnel in it. It has the historic perspective, but it's not, there won't be committees needing to try to figure out what to do with all of those rooms in a house that doesn't seem to fit the space. So I just wonder, is it too late to rethink that decision?
We would have to redo, this is Breck Perkins, we would have to redo all of the master planning, Catherine, if we were to go down that alley. So
okay.
I think it would probably be prohibitive.
Okay.
Well, and just to add to that quickly, Catherine, we spent a lot of time looking at both structures, and if you have to keep a structure, the house makes the most sense. The cost difference is not going to be substantial, whichever one you keep. And I think that, you know, the house offers a lot more than the shed does. The shed is just, I'm not even sure how you keep that structure.
In a word, Catherine,
It went down.
I think we've lost Nick.
There he
This
is.
sounds like
There
a
he goes.
repeat of last meeting.
I think the way we have to look at the house is that it's a, if you will, a gateway to
Okay. It was just a thought. Thank you.
principal value. No, I don't. That ship has sailed, Catherine. There were, you know, a year's worth of discussions and different approaches, and SHPO was adamant about the house. So, so it's a necessary part of the project, and the challenge is going to be to find the most effective use for it, and that's what the subcommittee will be grappling with, as to whether it tilts towards you know, town rec activities and support of those, or whether it tilts towards you know, the community rowing center, and we'll I think it'll just take some time. My own personal thought is that we should project 10 years from now what we want it to be going on at this site, and then work backwards from there about how we get to that point. Because I think that despite the relative small size of the site, and the other challenges associated with it, including obviously parking, I think it does have tremendous potential for influencing the community. I failed to, Sandy, we didn't have any correspondence, correct? That I'm aware of.
No, there's no correspondence. I haven't received anything.
So I have a question. I've seen some of the elevations of what's being proposed with the new shed attached to the house. Do we have any kind of layouts for what they think is going to look like yet? Or is that going to be something that's going to come as a result of sort of trying to figure out how to use the space?
Well, Mike, I think the Friends Committee and the Rowing Center folks are still sorting out that, because of the uncertainty of the role of the house. It's so I don't know, Mike, do you want to comment?
Yeah, we have not done any design work on the house yet, just because it has been uncertain. And I put together a couple different proposals for the subcommittee I've been working on that range from largely leaving it exactly how it is right now and just fixing it up and figuring out how to use the spaces to kind of full renovation. But I think without a program attached to it, it doesn't really make sense to spend a lot of time doing design work yet.
Okay.
I think it's,
I have a little bit
we
of
just got to figure out.
All right, I have a
Yeah,
little bit
use
of
first.
being at least looking at some of that. I've rowed actively out of 4 boathouses. I've done serious work in about another 4 or 5 in terms of being around them. So I have a pretty good exposure of boathouses. Granted, like somebody said earlier, they're all on the Charles River. So, and I know that the Charles River is a very different river than the kind of site that we have here. But there are a lot of different houses I've seen and a lot of different ways of approaching the problem. So I'm sort of interested in seeing some of those details as they come out. So.
Thank you, Rick. That'll be valuable. And from the research I did and working with when I was serving on the Boathouse committee, there's an incredibly wide range of uses of shoreline space by communities, from very, very simple to, remarkably elaborate, and everything in between. And so we have a wide range of choices of what could go on there, and lots of, there's no need for us to reinvent the wheel. I just think we have to set our expectations of what we think is achievable, and then proceed. It may take us some additional time, but anyway.
Nick, I have a question, Steve.
Sure.
So now that this meeting has taken place with the rec folks and the select woman, can we move forward with the subcommittee meeting?
Yes.
Do we have a plan on when we can do that?
I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks. So it appears as though, Steve, what's going to have to happen is, back to correspondence for a second, probably the most significant quote unquote correspondence we had was the news that the bond commission voted to bond for about $9 million, as I think Danielle sent a note around to everybody today, and Susan is working on an application. I guess the signals that were apparently given from the ECD was that, given the fact that it's only 9, not 20 or 30 million, it's prudent. It was suggested that we scale back the project and ask for less money, which I know makes sense, but it's easy to say that it makes sense than to find revisions to the project. So I'll let Susan speak to it, but I believe she's working on a revised application, and my thought would be that she'll share that application with us between now and next month's meeting, because the deadline is April 1. And Susan, do you agree that, or is it going to be possible for us to, receive the draft application for review and then comment on it at our February meeting? Will that give you enough time to take that as feedback to go into the...
Certainly, Nick. So what has happened since we met the last time is the bond commission bonded for $9.5 million. And so up to 1 million of that is going to be set aside for assessment only projects. So these are for assessment projects, remediation and assessment projects within this program. And so there's only $9.5 million in the entire program. Now they're saying that the maximum request is going to be $2 million. The idea that they're going to give out, that few of grants is probably not the case. So the lower that we can be and still achieve what we need to achieve is, of course, going to make us more competitive. They have already given out the deadlines. The pre-application deadline is February 16th. I did check in with Ms. Shandy at DECD to ask if we had to file a new pre-application because we already had one that was approved on this same project. And so she had told us that as long as the project has not changed, we don't have to file a new pre-application. So our pre-application is still approved. And so the full application is due Wednesday, April 7th. We had the application at about 95%, and I already have a meeting later in the week, and Deb Downey and I were going to sit down and try to get the budget sort of value engineered down as much as we could to get the things that we need, but to also make sure that we're really competitive, and also to go back over the rubric, some of which has changed. This is a little bit different than what we were seeing before. The application that we'd prepared this summer was actually a completely different application because when they came out with the application process this fall and released new rubric and new information for the application process, they changed the application completely around. Some of the substance was the same, some things were new, some things were just arranged a little bit differently. So we're going to sort of fine tune that later this week, and so I think it would be easily available for the next meeting. And then if folks want to weigh in, obviously all of you have been on this project a lot longer than I, so if there are things that you think I've missed or that we want to make sure that we include, or if there are details that you think would make us more competitive, we're very open to, of course, accepting all that information so that we can move forward. But we should be able to move forward fairly quickly here. They're saying that finalists will expect to participate in a video conference the 4th week in May, and that awards may be announced the 2nd week in June. So it'll likely be the early part of the summer that we would know whether or not we received an award and we're able to move forward.
All right, thank you. So, and back to your question, Steve. Yeah, my hope is that the subcommittee can meet, if not next week, the week after. I'll circulate a request tomorrow for times that work for folks.
Yeah, I would suggest we do the Glastonbury road trip before the meeting, so this way everybody gets a pretty good idea of what they're looking at, what we need to bang out and try to figure this out.
Nick, I have to.
It could just drag out if we just let it drag.
Yeah. Nick, I have to leave, unfortunately, but I have two things. If we could put a deadline on getting the program sorted for the house, well, I think that would be really, at least some sort of a goal that would be helpful. And then the other aspect, I was wondering, with the application, is it possible to phase or create several phases so that we can get money to be able to accomplish one phase and say that the second bit of work would be in a second phase, Susan? Is that a possibility, as opposed to doing drastic value engineering to achieve a goal?
My understanding for this particular grant, and I can read it again just to make sure that this hasn't changed, but my understanding is that this is a one and done.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
I think you're correct with that, Susan. This is Debbie. So I think it's going to be important to do some value engineering. I think it's also important for us to realize that, unfortunately, the initial plan didn't include the house. So right now, when we're looking at a budget of looking at the numbers presented by Mike last month, of $500,000, that money is not currently in the budget to renovate the house. So it may be building the park and kind of leaving the house as it is for a while, and then trying to get money over the next few years to do something with it. So while we may have good ideas on the programs, it almost may be putting the cart before the horse for some of that.
Understood. We had a project budget update last month. Are you still with us, Chad? Did you go to your other meeting, Chad?
Yeah. Go on.
I think Chad's gone to the other meeting, but I can probably answer those same questions, Nick, if that's helpful to you.
Well, I think the issues are going to be, or the questions are going to emerge from the new project budget that you and Deb are working on, I would think. So my thought would be that we hold off questions about it until the February meeting.
I can tell you, Nick, that we have closed out the assessment grant. that the money was spent down of the remainder of the $200,000 of the assessment grant was spent down before the December 31st deadline. And we did file paperwork with the state to draw down that money back to the town of Stonington. So we are square with that grant, and we did make the deadline.
Okay. Well, any other questions about the Brownfield grant application before we move on to new business?
Nick, it's Tom Switz. I have one question for Susan. What was that money spent on the drawdown?
So the last of the money was spent. The remainder of the items were part of that change order that we discussed with Chad 2 meetings ago in the October meeting. So they included the remainder items from the living shoreline, and there was a bunch of information where we were trying to move things forward enough to make the project more shovel ready, so that when we went into this new grant round, that we had more information on that basis to be able to push the permitting forward. So we did make the deadline, and Chad did meet with me actually the day before Christmas, and we went through some of the maps for the living shoreline and a lot of the details about how that went with the submerged aquatic vegetation and the types of mitigations they're trying to do to not only maintain the vegetation that's there and protect it, but also maybe fill in there are some gaps and things that they're not really sure why they happen. So some of that actually is sort of underneath the water, trying to, I don't know how to say bolster, I guess it's bolster really, the areas that have been taken out by wave action. So that was a big piece of what they did going forward. So we were able to close that up, and he was able to give me some of the plans actually even before Christmas for us to use. And we're actually going to be using those. We're still out actively looking for other money through other sources as well. So don't be discouraged that I know it sounds a little dire right now, but we are actively out looking for other money for this program, whether it be historic preservation grants or other things with the living shoreline. So we are trying to work on, where else can we get money from, even small amounts of money to help move the project forward.
Thank you very much, Susan.
Yeah, Tom, the reason that's important is one of the scoring criteria is, what permits do you have? What progress have you made on permitting? So the push was to move the, if you will, the feasibility of the project along by trying to use some of that assessment money to move, in particular, the living shoreline aspect of the project. So I think it was a good use of the remaining funds. New business. Anyone have any new business or questions or comments they'd like to make?
Hey, Mike Rowley here. Hey, Susan, how much money do we have left now that you took care of Chad for us? How much do we have now? I thought we had a little over 500,000 or something. Not sure.
I was talking about the assessment grant, particularly, Mike, and that's been spent completely.
Okay. So how much money do we have right now moving forward that we could spend on that park?
Susan, do a review like you did last month, Susan, of X amount. What was it? 1.8 or what? 2.1 that was originally did. X amount for purchase and X amount for a few $100,000, as I recall. For you gave a nice summary last month about the initial appropriation, and there is some left in that, correct?
Nick, I'm sorry, I didn't expect to do that again tonight, so I didn't bring that home from the office with me. I'd be happy to do it again next month if that's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. My recollection is that the voters appropriated more than it cost to buy the property, but not dramatically more. You know, a couple 300,000 more. The price was going to be adjusted if 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 the town had to pay some money for environmental. So we'll have Susan, if you don't mind, Susan, bring that information to the next meeting, so we can revisit those numbers.
It is approximately $500,000.
Yeah.
I'm happy to go through that again, Nick. I'm sorry, I didn't realize we would be doing that again.
No problem.
That's fine.
No
we
problem.
can do it.
Well, I guess the quote unquote new business or new idea that I'd like to introduce, I shared with the Boathouse folks a couple of years ago, is we've had the delay associated with the historic building that has tamped down the Boathouse Group's fundraising abilities, because the project basically has been stalled by that, the delayed by a year plus with the SHPO approval. Pandemic, well, and now less money being available from the state than we had hoped, and then a pandemic thrown in for good measure. The Boathouse, the Friends group, Tom and John Thornell had developed a business plan that indicated that the operation of the community rowing center could be, an operation that would be in the black. And I would just like to not necessarily propose, but just put on the table, when we're talking about sources of money, that the Farmers Home Administration has very inexpensive money available for loans, low interest loans, 2%, that it can be amortized over 40 years. And, because the property is owned by the town would at least have to be involved in the application. But, the rowing center could be, the applicant. I don't know. It's if personally, just speaking for myself, not necessarily even chair of the committee, if we had to pick between two paths of do we do this in increments over the next 10 years as it becomes available, or use a community loan from the Farmers Home Administration, which would be the obligation of Friends to, but the town would have to be the vehicle to apply for it, and make it part of the lease that the Friends are responsible for the repayment of the loan. If that would be a means of not having to go back to the townspeople for another appropriation of X amount of hundreds of thousands or whatever it would be a significant sum. To me, that would be, I would rather than go back to the people for more money or do it in bite-sized increments as money became available. I personally would rather ask the Friends folks and the Community Rowing Center folks whether they think the operations they envision there sustain the repayment of a loan, and if so, at what amount, and then scale the project based on their business plan. Just a thought that maybe the subcommittee take up in more detail, but I would that way we could buy, 22, the summer of 22, have the park redone and functioning boathouse in place, which would be a nice thing after a number of years.
So, hey, Nick, this is Steve. So why couldn't it be a combination of, if we're going to go that route, the Friends and the town based off of some of the recreation programs, if there's charges for those programs?
Yeah, those are possible.
Because it almost has to be. It almost has to be a group. It has to be a group. A group thing where everybody has to, pick up their bootstraps and go. So I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't like it to be if someone said, "Hey, we need to do it this way," as opposed to and somebody else gets a quote unquote free ride. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's Steve. If I could add to that, I think that's the other reason I'd like to go up to Glastonbury, because they have kind of figured out how to monetize their boathouse. And I think whether the Friends do it or the town does it, there's the ability to monetize that space and get an income from it. And if you look at what other buildings, I know I just finished a event center over in Weekapaug, and they're charging it out at $40,000 an event. So we wouldn't charge that kind of money, but there's plenty of interest in people looking for access to sites for different facility uses. And I think the town really hasn't embraced that yet. And I think they should, because I think that it could very easily pay for the renovations of the house and the ongoing costs of the park.
Well, exactly. Yeah, but what structurally a challenge we've got is that there are, Harvard, a private nonprofit, runs their boats with basically nothing from the city of Boston or the state of Massachusetts or Suffolk County, and you've got loads of around the country, loads of purely municipal run community rowing centers. We're at some kind of a hybrid, and the challenge is, we're going to have to make some choices fairly soon about, because the town doesn't have the money for the boathouse, there's going to be a private component, which is the boathouse, and how we craft this hybrid where it's town land, town-owned property, and the blend of town programs and rowing center programs. That's going to be the challenge. I think it's doable, and it's done. There are hybrid models out there, so we just have to make some choices.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject one thing real quickly from the Board of Finance side.
Sure. We always love to hear from the Board of Finance.
No one loves to hear from me. Let's be honest. I know my role in life.
Come on, Tim, I do.
We already do that kind of thing in the town. We redid the fields and at the high school, and we have both the Park and Rec use them, as well as private soccer clubs, lacrosse clubs, and all that. We've talked about fees for doing that. We haven't been able to implement that because the clubs then said they couldn't do it. So this is not unique to the town of Stonington. And this idea is unfortunately not unique to this town of Stonington. However, the success of it would be unique to the town of Stonington. So we've already been facing some of these situations and tried to figure out a way to leverage getting pay in from private groups that we would then be able to put the money into a lockbox and then redo the fields or something in 10 years when they got to be redone. So I think we've been looking at this, and I'm looking at this as another opportunity that it might work. But Steve and Mike Crawley, I think you can tell I'm kind of very skeptical and nervous about it. But I'm not going to say no, but it's one of those things we got to find the balance between the town biting off too much and then being in a bad fiscal position for it, and how much interest and revenue can we really generate coming out of it. So I think the questions are right. I think we've done this before, and it's going to be interesting to see how it goes forward.
Just to interject for a minute, which is one of the boathouses in Boston that does this model correctly is called community boating, or CRI, not community boating, sorry, community CRI. And they're a private organization, and they're on the Charles River, which is public land, and they are all about programs that are basically financing their operations and their capex they needed to put everything together. So it is a good model, and it's maybe something that we may want to talk to them about how all that works. What I was going to say is that what some of the boathouses I've been in before do is in the shed area, which is typically a wide-ish footprint space, and usually have a second floor. If the second floor is a bigger and an open kind of space, it's actually it can turn into something like a function room that some people would end up. I don't know if that was what you were alluding to, Rich, or who was speaking.
Or Mike.
No, Mike.
I mean,
Yeah, like a function room, because then basically what you have is kind of a big room on a beautiful kind of park, and it has a nice view, and it's not going to be something where it's a regular basis, but it's something where people decide they want to have an event that's there. That would, of course, influence how space would need to be laid out in a way that it could be used that way. So a lot of the boathouses I've been in have function rooms that end up getting used like that sometimes. So.
Jump in from Human Services for a second to speak to rec, and we absolutely charge fees for all of the programs we facilitate right now. Very, very minimal fees, and we offer a lot of scholarship opportunities as well. We are doing so much more with such a small budget. We only have 2 full-time staff dedicated to all of our programs right now, so it's absolutely something that we are focused on, is bringing in revenue to basically pay for our contractor staff as well as our extra furniture and equipment and infrastructure upgrades. But I think right off the bat, it's a lot of pressure for our very small division of 2 people really to take on bringing in that type of revenue to cover those types of fees. So it's definitely something that Rich and I have been talking about and throwing around. But as of right now, we're really not equipped to really commit to anything like that. But we have had discussions based on prior meetings that you all have had. So we do charge fees for our programs, but again, we don't have anything of that magnitude right now to cover fees that we're talking about right now, or loans that we would be repaying.
And I agree with Leanne. You guys do a heck of a good job, and I'm the benefactor of many of those programs with my kids. So for what you've got and what you do, Rich, Leanne, great job. I mean, I can't say enough good things.
Here. As the parent of grown kids, I would echo that sentiment. Any other new business? Hearing none. Comments from the public? We don't have any public participation this evening.
No public present, Nick.
Nick, if I could say 2 more things quickly. Rick, there's a website that's StoningtonCRC.org. It's StoningtonCommunityRowing.org. It has the plans for the building on it. It has a bunch of information about the program. We have worked with CRI in Boston a lot. Actually, the original architect we had involved in the project did their building. So that is very much the footprint we've been looking at and the concept we've been looking at. Also, on another totally different note, just Nick, based on your comments at the beginning of the meeting, Jason Vincent was just a huge asset to this project. He put a lot of this together. He was a tremendous asset to the town of Stonington, and would really be nice if we could figure out as a group some way how to honor him in this project, because he was a huge influence in the town of Stonington, the direction the town of Stonington made. And I certainly, not anything to decide at this meeting, but something to talk about and meetings going forward that Jason deserves, some honor for all of his efforts for the town of Stonington. And this would be a nice way if we could figure out how to do it in this park.
I couldn't. I said the same thing to Danielle late this afternoon. So, I definitely think we should keep that notion in mind. Any other comments from the committee?
It's Tom Switz. I would just agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and Mike. And it's just so sad to hear that news. And what a wonderful, wonderful person, and a special guy, and just bright and enthusiastic, and just want to let his family know how much we appreciated all the work he did for us.
Yeah, no question. His legacy will because in addition to I think I remember hearing Rob say that, he basically, Jason facilitated about, I don't know, it was some crazy, or like $130 million of additions to the grand list, but also we could go on and on, but the new Pawcatuck zoning regulations to help revitalize Pawcatuck. I mean, we'll be seeing his influence felt, literally for decades. Hard to imagine any more significant influence on the community, and a wonderful, wonderful being as well, and completely dedicated to this project. He was. We'll keep his family in our thoughts and prayers. Any other comments from the committee before we close? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
I didn't get who first and second. I wasn't fast enough. Could you tell me who the names are?
I motion, Jim Kelly.
Tom Switz, second.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'll reach out to folks on the subcommittee next day or two to try to pick a time, and I'll with Mike a trip to Glastonbury. Thank you all for your time. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Nick, could you stay for a second so I can talk to you?
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, Susan.
We had to have a special meeting because of, they said that you didn't sign the form and sign the schedule and turn it in, but I thought you did that on December 2nd. Because when I looked on the town website last week, there was no meeting scheduled for today. So I emailed them. I said, "Where's our meeting?" She says, "Well, Nick never turned in the schedule in the commissioner form that you have to fill out." So I said, "Well, can we do a special meeting?" She said, "Sure." So I did it that way. But she says they need that. And I said, and I talked to Stacy Haskell because I thought maybe you'd given it to her. And she's going, "No, I haven't seen it." So
I think I gave the selectman's office, not to the clerk's office, but I
spoke to Stacy in the selectman's office. That's what I thought. So I talked to Stacy. I said, "Did Nick give this to you?" And she goes, "No, he didn't give it to me." So if you just print it out, sign it up, and hand it over.
Yeah. I could have sworn, I don't know whether because I don't think I could, I have handed in, right? Physically, it couldn't have been faxed, was it, right? Or was something.
Right, because it was we voted on the meeting schedule on the November 7th meeting. And then on December, we had to have it by November 30th and we hadn't got it. So I emailed you and I told you we needed it. And on December 2nd, you emailed me back and said, I'm taking it to the town. So I just, thought it was taken to the town. And no one, contacted me. So I was just like, okay. It's COVID times, Nick. I get it. I've been working from home. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
But I thought I signed this and submitted it. I can't honestly recall whether I submitted it to the office but if they didn't have it, then I'll just redo it.
But you gotta have that commissioning letter with it too. The other paper. There's two papers. There's the schedule and the commissioning paper.
Okay.
You want me to resend them to you?
Hold on.
So you'll have them fresh? He's gone.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Sure. I was going to look in my email, but send them and I'll file them tomorrow.
Okay. And now for that subcommittee meeting, somebody on that subcommittee said they can't do Tuesdays. So it might be a thought to do it on Wednesday.
All right. Maybe 2 weeks from Wednesday.
2 weeks from Wednesday. What would that be? That would be January 20th. Wednesday, January 20th, maybe. Question mark. What's that?
What's the day meeting?
For this committee?
Yeah.
For the rec committee? I had that right here. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. February 1st.
Yeah,
Do you think that they're not going to have time to go see the Glastonbury before, 2 weeks maybe?
I think let me talk to I almost would rather meet next Wednesday, and that I'd love to have, and I think we need 2 meetings in January, and if we wait till the 20th, there's not going to be time to have 2 meetings. We basically need to have a makeup meeting from missing the one we canceled in January. So,
right.
Because we have some work to do that it's hard to do with the full committee. Anyway, so I'll be in touch with you.
Should I invite Rick Broberg next time to the subcommittee meeting to see if he has interest? He seems to be.
Sure.
Okay. I didn't know. All right.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Because he seems to have an interest in it. So.
Operation. Yep. All right. Thank you.
Okay, then. All right.
And get me, since we're doing housekeeping, I think, don't we have like 3 meetings with tonight's meeting? It's like 3 meetings. I need to get your time in. So send me
I'll send those to you. All right. I'll get the timesheets, the schedule, and the commissioning letter.
I wanted you to send me one to wait to do the
right. I sent them to you.
Now,
right after the meeting, like the next day, because I waited till after the subcommittee meeting to send them both to you. Okay.
I don't know.
Too much frivolity over the holidays, Nick.
I'm gonna, when I get off, I don't want to lose you. I'm gonna get off and check. Well, either way, send me tonight, tomorrow, the next day. I promise I'll file all 3 with the Board of Finance. I'm going to do a cleanup, catch-up exercise for the town.
Okay.
All right?
Good night, Nick. All right, bye-bye. Oh, shh.